Just a couple things. People ask me about it. You know, you should know also we have a new 28-foot boat floating around. I saw a good article about it. You know, I did read one person that was critical that Annapolis City has a boat. Wasn't you, Frank, this time?
No. No, but you did have to work the boat.
Being filmed. No, there was a UASI, which is an urban area safety grant, a federal grant, very, or we'll say de minimis cost to the city, just for the gas, the fuel. You know, we're 17 linear miles of shore. We're surrounded mostly by water, and I think this is a really good addition to the Police Department of Public Safety. We've already had some good results, quelling disturbances, just riding around, floating around down by the dock. Had a lot of good feedback, and DNR is very happy because we're able to jointly respond to emergencies, including the anchorage just south of the Bay Bridge where boats are there. And so there's a lot of critical infrastructure in the city of Annapolis as the capital city. I think it is a comforting feeling that people in the law enforcement community and also that who have a stake in the community know that we have that capability to be out there in the water and quickly get to problems in a non-conventional way.
I got a question on that. Are you only responding to calls, or are you guys doing like
Proactive.
So are you like looking for drunk boaters and things like that, or?
Yes, we're not out every day. We've been out in the summer 2 and upward of 3 nights a week, Friday and the weekends. We hope to keep it out at least till December, once or twice a week. We're doing it when we have extra officers that are staffed through our flex team so that they're principally on the street, but also we have extras throughout the boat. And we are going to call sometimes. But we got feedback, for instance, was an off-duty Anne Arundel County officer that was in this kind of this party atmosphere. When our boat went by, everybody behaved, and there was a number, you know, it's sort of a quelling effect. But there have been some calls that we've been out on. You know, from time to time, people fall off their boats. We've had some DOAs in the water that DNR had to deal with. We can help with that, and we can hopefully be out there to prevent that drunken behavior that sometimes leads to it. Yeah, Frank.
Two things. Do your boat, folks that run the boats, are they captain qualified, number one? And number two, do you work in conjunction with the DNR?
Yeah, in fact, I met with Chief George Johnson, today from the DNR. We talked about sharing certain responsibilities. But the first answer is, yeah, we have really good training. It was at least 3 weeks long, wasn't it, Sarge? Was it?
Like 4 or 5.
Or 4 or 5. We have two captains now for that. We're going to hopefully have 2 more. When there's a lull in the action in the winter, we'll send them through this training so that it's less needed police time on the street. They'll go there, and we'll have some capability to switch different operators. But to answer your question, yeah, DNR and Anne Arundel County have boats.
Right.
And Coast Guard does also. And there's some overlap. We have overlap with DNR. They've got a broader area, you know, south of Weems, north of Severn. You know, there's some areas that we go 50-50 to a split of the waterway. And we share that. We also, they'll call us out if there's a problem too. We'll probably want to call on them more than they call us though. But at the same time, we can now get out there. It's very low cost to do it. So we're happy about it. Questions on the boat? Anything? Just wanted to bring that up so you can, in case you saw it, we're happy to have that. I kind of touched on most of the thing. I mean, we definitely, I mean, there's been some questions that came up about a couple of robberies. We made some cases. There's been a few robberies. We had 3 or so in Eastport this year. If you have any questions for me, I let some of the heavy hitters go, the detectives, but you know, if you have any questions now or later about any particular crime or anything you want to talk about, even stats, Jackie, we can talk about where we are statistically with our crime. And I'll just, like I mentioned, we're down overall in violence, and we're just teetering on our numbers. Eastport is down compared to itself last year. We're happy to see that as a quantifiable number, but you know, overall the city's very close to where we were at record numbers last year in overall crime.
Record level.
Record level, I said that.
Record level.
I said record low. Record high reduction, but you're right.
I have a question. Would the police department come out to a neighborhood and give us recommendations for lighting or maybe using video cameras or anything to help?
Yeah, we will. They're in the room now. We'll do that. We've gotten complaints. We've worked with Public Works to look at areas when it comes to traffic enforcement. We have people who are crossing the street downtown where we handed it off to Public Works to look at lighting in that area. But when it comes to community safety and lighting, we'll do that too. So if we get the call, Sergeant Kirshner, who you have our information, get a hold of us. we'll look at that. We're looking at Clay Street right now around certain areas to help with lighting there too. So if there's any concern that you have particularly in your community, we'll look at it.
We have a lot of traffic, foot traffic and car traffic on our alley.
Mhm.
We're in Sailor's Key, and
Okay.
instead of being on Bay Ridge, they've now moved over to going down the unnamed alley.
So you're talking about like a lot of traffic.
A lot of
versus
foot
road.
traffic of, you know, people that are just using it instead of using Bay Ridge,
Okay.
or coming in on, with cars,
Yeah.
and,
What do you think the main cause of that is?
where they're going? Downtown, back from town.
So you think they just found a better way to traverse kind
It's
of?
just cut off one little, you know, corner. I don't know that it's that easy. If you're coming down Bay Ridge and you don't want to go to Adams and make the big loop, you can cut through and make it a little shorter back down.
So do you think that it needs more of a police patrol presence, or do you think we need to do speed enforcement, or what do you
We're
think?
trying
the
to
issue is?
figure out what we can do in terms of lighting, or, you know, we've had someone have their car broken into, smashed the window, and we
Yeah, I mean, we can.
I think maybe that lady was there the other day asking for $20.
Yeah, I mean, we'll take a look with you at the lighting. We'll certainly do that. And if there's something that we can recommend to get fixed, you know, we'll push for that too.
Well, it's definitely dark there, and it's the nighttime traffic when the bars close that are coming back through that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we can do we can do that. We could also take a look at it for enforcement too, if there's some kind of erratic driving. But Sarge's got that in her list of things. We can talk to you in particular about it. And we have to discuss it. Any other,
I'm just curious whether we have gangs in this area.
Okay, well, we are always curious too, because some people define gangs. We're trying to stick to the book on that. There are gangs by conventional definition in Annapolis. They're not an overwhelming number of people in the Bloods and Crips and some of the gangs that are imported from the West Coast. We do have some gangs. If I had to say what our biggest challenge with gangs are, we have some Latino gangs that we have, that follow a classification of, say, a few people that want to consider themselves MS-13, a few people at Brown Pride, Aztecas. There's a few people who are associated with this gang or have a banner of this gang in their recognition. And we are working with agencies to help eradicate that right now. We're doing our best to get in front of our gang problem before it's a real problem. But yes, sometimes though we see graffiti that are not gangs. And sometimes, and again, Joe Hudson did a really good job 2 months ago, I think, not this last go, of trying to educate people in the difference between graffiti and what we'll do. Whenever you see signs of graffiti that you think may relate to gangs or gang activity, you're going to call us. We're going to document this graffiti, we're going to take pictures of it, we're going to try to find the origin and hopefully get the word back out that this may have been skaters or just kids that are, doing their graffiti versus gangs. We caught some graffiti people 2 weeks ago, and we got quite a bit of information. And we also saw, I think it was like 7 incidents or so. Isn't that so? Yeah. So sometimes the graffiti's not gangs, but you ask a question, I'm giving you a fair answer. Annapolis is home to a couple people who consider themselves in gangs, and I can't quantify, but there's a handful of people who would say they're in gangs, and we're working at enforcement and trying to eradicate the problem before it's worse. Yeah. Yeah, Jack.
I've heard different information about patrols that are done in Eastport. I remember hearing that there's a marked car that goes through at least once every evening, an unmarked car. Occasionally we'll see police on foot, which we really appreciate.
Okay.
Can you tell us anything about, what not the schedule as far as what time, but what the frequency is?
Yeah, I'll tell you that
I'm not trying to find out when not to be around.
Up until about 2-3 weeks ago, I would use the word redoubled. We probably doubled our flex officers. Those are the officers that aren't tethered to the radio with calls, which would mean that any time, usually after 6 o'clock at night, most nights, there'd be at least one ops car that would be, or maybe 2, that would have this area, and they would go into other parts of Eastport, Lower Eastport, so maybe 2, maybe 3 cars on a Friday or Saturday night would spend half their time in Eastport, because we have anywhere between, on a Friday night, between 18 and 25 officers. Patrol has 8. Okay, so if you do the math, on a Friday and Saturday night, we'll have maybe about 12 extra police officers in 6 or 7 cars. Some of them are splitting their time between Eastport, and again, before the last 3 weeks, probably half of the extra officers, maybe up to 3 or 4 cars would be in Eastport on those nights. 2 or so maybe on the weeknights. So that's what you probably are seeing. Now we've got a little bit more, we pushed a little bit of that extra work to other areas. We've kind of, now that the summer's not, you know, we're back to a point where we're not static, we're not staying in Eastport Terrace and Harbor House like we did all summer. But we're coming back and forth, coming back and forth, coming back and forth. And a lot of the ops officers, those 3 to 5 extra cars on a Friday, Saturday night, on a Friday, Saturday, sometimes on the other nights, are bouncing back between maybe Bay Ridge, or they're going into Newtown, they're going into Robinwood, they're spending time in parole. But I would say, you know, if we had to split it up, Sarge, I'd say probably close to half the officers, half the time, can be found in Eastport on those nights.
When you say Eastport, is it also in areas other than Eastport Terrace and Harbor House?
Yeah, because Vic called me the other day and he saw officers going down the street and he was happy about it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen, we're more where we have potential for calls. We're more often than not going to be in the public housing area, but we definitely are in Lower Eastport too. The daytime officers have extra direction to do that because of the larceny from autos, and now the night officers are kind of doing that too. Patrol was running an initiative for almost 2 to 3 months straight of trying to eradicate the larceny from auto problem by putting the plain car between, I don't know, was it, I think at 5 in the morning, all the way through work hours in Eastport, Lower Eastport. So you may have seen those officers driving by in an unmarked car too. I think it's still going on, but I'll know tomorrow because I have a pretty good crime meeting. We're going to find out what we're doing. Do you want more?
No, I'm just asking because I think a lot of people aren't aware that there are patrols going through, and I think it's impressive when you hear that there is, you know, X number of marked cars, unmarked cars.
It's good to be asked that question, and I'm sure that's something that I would want to know if the officers were driving down my neighborhood. Rest assured, Eastport is a big priority for the officers, and the discretionary officers know that too. And so you're going to have extra cars in Eastport most of the time. Most of the time.
Is there any kind of a noise, I don't know, regulation, whatever you call it? I live on Jackson Street, just around the corner from the public housing. And there are these guys who sit out there and make a lot of noise. It doesn't really bother me most of the time, but I just wondered, you know, is that okay? And I never walk that way because.
Are they talking or is it their music?
Yeah, they're talking, drinking, you know.
So it's not
hanging out.
commercial noise.
They're hanging out, they're just loud, that's all. And, you know, it might be okay, but I don't know.
It comes to a reasonable level. There's disorderly conduct that we get calls for all the time, and disturbances. You know, if you remain anonymous because you call us and you wish not to, you know, you don't give your name, but you tell us that there's a lot of noise and there's disturbances, we'll show up and we'll, you know, we can move people on sometimes, we can discourage that behavior. There is commercial noise ordinances that don't apply to that, where music's coming out of the bar over 100 feet and hearing it, and then there's decibel levels. But that doesn't apply to the person. It does apply to a car blasting the radio, but it doesn't apply to a conversation people carrying on.
In a situation like that, do you have a designator that'll go in and measure it before you actually approach them?
You mean for the people or for the commercial
For the
noise?
police officer, as he pulls up.
To the no, we're not going to measure the conversation.
No,
For
measure
the
the
music,
noise
yeah.
factor.
We have
Because some of these are boom boxes.
we do have one, and to be honest, to be frankly frank, they're not taking it out on these calls all the time. Downtown though, we talked about how they should be out at night with it, and we haven't had an opportunity to really measure a violation lately that I've heard of, that we had a violation that we could say that was outside of the limits.
Yeah. We have a person that's gonna, we had a person that was doing after hours inspection and weekend inspections, but he got promoted. So I'm just filling that position now. Again, it's been empty for a month or so. And we will have someone that's looking at code enforcement. You'd be amazed what goes on.
Is that your night person,
On the
please?
weekends.
Okay.
Yeah, this person will be after hours, so they'll be after hours and they will be really late nights on Fridays and Saturdays until it's just so cold that nothing really exciting is